on this computer. Okay, so slideshow, play from current slide. Let's go to there. Okay, so can you see TERA on your screens there? All right. Is anyone familiar with this concept? No?
No.
Okay. All right. So Terra is comes from the work of the fellow that we did the coaching work with before, Michael Bungay Stanya, when we were talking about taming the advice monster a couple of months ago. And it's building on the work of a guy named David Rock, who developed a model called the SCARF model, which I might actually share with you in the chat in a little while. So it's something you can explore in your own time later on, because it's a variation on exactly what I'm going to talk to you about here. So Terra is the concept essentially of how do our people, so Terra is an acronym, and it stands for tribe, expectation, rank, and autonomy. And I'll go through each of those now. But essentially it's this idea of how, to use the language that we've also used with you before, how psychologically safe are people and how do they feel within your context, within your environment? And a real recognition, and this is absolutely foundational to what I'm going to talk about here, a real recognition that not everybody feels the same way in your work environment. Some people are completely at ease, and possibly that's you in your work environment. And some people get the shudders just having to come in through the gates in the morning. That's an extreme version, but it happens. And before I go into each of the four, I'll give you an example of how that happens. I worked in a New South Wales public primary school many years ago, and there was a teacher that we worked with who used to sit in her car out the front and cry until the morning bell rang, and then she would come in. For whatever reason, her personality, her personal belief was that it wasn't an environment where she was welcome and safe and comfortable and at ease. And that was literally, and so she'd lock herself in a classroom at lunchtime. She would never go and meet with others. It was a tiny school, only 120 kids. So it was really obvious when she wasn't around. But for some people, that's the way they feel. And so if we have that as one extreme end of the spectrum, and the other one where you really feel like, I am 100% myself here. I am 100% at ease. I'm well respected. I'm well regarded. I'm familiar with all the processes. This is my place. I am exactly where I'm meant to be. So that's at one end of the spectrum, and my old colleague is at the other end of the spectrum. And as we go through these four, we'll start to shed a bit of light on why that might be the case. So the first one is tribe. And so when we talk about tribe, we're talking about whether we are part of the tribe, whether we're in the tribe or we're outside the tribe. And what our brain, and this is really sort of our ancient unconscious brain is asking here. And this is all related to that part of your brain that I'm sure you've all done a little bit of reading and research, and you've certainly heard about this idea of the amygdala, where it's really about, am I safe in this environment? And so the amygdala obviously sort of directs those basic responses of fight, flight, or freeze. And so in these situations, we really walk into, and so my old colleague walking through the gate of the school, she felt like people were against her. She didn't feel that she was part of the tribe. Others, presumably most of you, walk through the school gates and you go, yeah, people are with me here. This is my space. This is my tribe. And the question is and it's all happening unconsciously. Am I safe here? And is it dangerous for me here? Not presumably not physically, although I worked with some early career teachers in a tough high school in the Hunter Valley remotely yesterday, and one of them was talking about being physically assaulted by students there. So in some cases, is it physically dangerous for me to be here? Some cases that would be the case. I don't think it is for any of you, but certainly psychologically, is it dangerous for me to be here? Are people going to be undermining me? Am I going to be under attack in some way? And obviously, if you feel that you're not part of the tribe and that you are under attack in some way, that people aren't with you, that's going to have a huge impact. So suddenly you feel like that, you walk in the door and you get an email from Courtney, you're going to view it through the lens of attack. Courtney has sent it with love in her heart. The complete opposite. I mean, that might be a stretch, Courtney, but let's just say for my story's sake, love in her heart. She means there's no ill will in this whatsoever, but it's read in a way that, you know, this person, because they don't feel like they're part of the tribe, because they don't feel like they're safe, because they don't go to Courtney's birthday party outside of school, they're reading it through the lens of, what's she really saying here? I know what she's really saying here. And there's all this mad guesswork that is completely, you know, destructive, because suddenly they're reading things into it that Courtney did not mean at all. And so they spend their time in survival mode. And survival mode is incredibly draining. If you want to write down the names of some people who you've worked with or are currently working with to help exemplify some of these things, like for me, that woman that I worked with, she really exemplifies this lack of feeling like she was part of the tribe. No matter what anybody said to her, it was taken the wrong way because she felt she was under attack. All nuance is lost in these situations. And, you know, this deep ancient brain of ours is flooded with chemicals that say, get me out of here. She hangs out in her car, or argue and fight, or just freeze and do nothing. And all of those things, you know, you can think of people on your staff, in your life, who might be responding like that. But the problem is, I have a conversation with Kieran, and I expect that Kieran, you know, to use Dan's phrase, is an educated professional adult with a degree. He's going to hear it exactly the way I'm saying it. And that is naive of me to think that way, because it turns out that that's just not the case. And I think we explored that a little bit with the email idea. That nuance is lost. And therefore, if I'm not in the tribe, I'm an enemy of the tribe, and they are enemies of mine. And so when I look and listen to what they're saying, and when I hear what I'm being asked to do, I feel like I'm under attack. I feel like I'm an enemy. Really, and you know, this might all sound very extreme and tribal, but I wonder what variations of this actually exist on your staff with your people. So let's move to the second one, expectations. With expectation, we're asking ourselves, do I know what's going to happen next? And again, it's about safety. It's about, when my principal calls me into the office and says, I need to talk with you, do I know what's going to happen next? Because when we don't know, uncertainty is a real problem for humans, and we hate uncertainty. And so when you send an email to one of your staff members and you say, I need to speak to you about this, or I need to speak to you, or please come and see me, they're going through a million scenarios in their head, potentially, depending on how safe they feel. Because if their sense of tribiness is extremely high and they get an email from Margaret saying, I need to see you straight after school, there's obviously some element of that goes, oh God, I wonder what's happened. But it's perhaps more, I wonder what's happened, rather than, oh my God, what have I done wrong? What am I in for here? Because as soon as it starts to go into that realm of uncertainty, our brain says this is not a safe place for us. Uncertainty, we really despise uncertainty, and it's really problematic for us. And that can happen in many different ways when we don't know what the expectation is. The third one, the R stands for rank. A lot of you, and I'll use Kieran as an example here, because I'm guessing this is the case for you, Kieran, that you go from being a colleague to being a superior. And, I use that word, it's a problematic word, but meaning that you've got a position of authority over people who were previously your colleagues and friends, or perhaps in Kieran's case, even your wife. But this position of some sort of authority. And so people look at that and say, well, who's more important in this situation? And if you feel that your position your ranking position is subordinate, lower than the person who you've been, in conversation with, our brain again. And this is all unconscious stuff. And so we really need to develop our self-awareness to understand this. Do we deal differently with our principal when they have that position of superior rank than we do with the early career teacher? Is that problematic for you when you're with the principal? Is it problematic for the early career teacher when they're with you? Am I more important or less important here? And how is that going to impact what, the conversation or the situation that we're having? And then finally, the fourth one is autonomy. And autonomy is about whether or not, we have a say in what's going on. Because nothing kills engagement more in process than people feeling like, well, look, no one cares what I think anyway, so I'm just going to opt out. And you've had people like that sitting around your staff room where you might be running a meeting and this person has been silent all the way through, as they always are, and then you say to them, oh, what about you, Tim? Have you got a view on this? Look, no one cares what I think. Doesn't matter what I say, nothing's going to change anyway. That sort of defeatist attitude, that sense that they don't have any say in what's going to happen. And then there are people at the other end of that scale as well that say they know that their voice is listened to. They don't always get their way, but they're entitled to use that voice and that they actually have a voice. And obviously, the more we can get these four elements, this tribe, rank, expectation, and autonomy, not in the correct order there, the more we can get them in place, the higher the engagement is for the people that we're working with, the more likely people are to strive for a common good because they feel that this is their place. They feel they're safe here. They feel that they're listened to. And so they'll be more involved in that. And this also moves the unconscious stuff from our amygdala, which is saying, am I safe? And potentially saying no and giving off that sort of an alarm, into our prefrontal cortex, where all of those basic needs of safety and belonging are taken care of. So now we can actually start to think properly. This is the deep thinking, the best thinking part of our brain is brought into the equation now. So now things can happen a little bit differently than they might otherwise. So one of the things that Bungay Stanier talks about here when he talks about terror is how do we increase the terror quotient, as he refers to it? How do we increase people's sense of being part of the tribe? How do we increase people's sense of certainty within these situations, that they've got a voice, that they're listened to, that they're safe? So I'm going to put to you a couple of questions at this stage, which I think are next. Okay. So with that, I noticed most of you were taking some notes there. With that sense of this concept of terror in mind, and I know it's new to you, so you don't have to be all over it. You don't have to agree with it. That's just, a provocation, something to sit there with you. And with this quote from Kim from the podcast that we did with her, radical candor always starts with soliciting feedback, making sure you understand the other person's perspective on what you can do or stop doing to make it easier for them to work with you. And she makes the point, which you might recall in that podcast, of saying that language may not work for you. So you need to find the language that works for you. So you might not, Jean, you might not be able to call one of your team into your office and say, what do I need to do or stop doing? And to ask yourself, what do I need to let go of? But they're the questions we're asking for you here. And so again, I'm going to put you back into the same groups. I'm going to give you 8 minutes this time. So think about sharing that 4 each way of what are your thoughts on this idea of terror? And in the spirit of radical candor, what do you need to do or stop doing? And what do you need to let go of in order to increase that sense of radical candor? Because if we think about radical candor sitting in a garden bed of a high sense of tribiness, that idea that everyone's welcome, they feel safe, they know what's expected of them, there are no great surprises for them, that you have diminished the sense of rank working against them in any way, and you've really given them a voice. And one of the ways to give them a voice is to ask this question: what do I need to do or stop doing to allow you to do your work better? How can I support you, I suppose, is really what that question's asking. And what am I doing that's getting in the way for you at the moment? So just copy down those. In fact, I can put those questions in I can send it out as a broadcast, but you know the idea. Tara, what can you do or stop doing? And what do you need to let go of in order to increase that sense of psychological safety, that terror for your people? And also because that's what's going to lead us. Because if I've got a really great relationship with Kieran and I know that he feels that he's a part of the tribe, he's got a voice, there's no great uncertainty, and I'm not using my rank against him, then it's easier for me to move into that quadrant of radical candor and say to him, hey, Kieran, I was really surprised by the way you reacted in this situation. Can we talk about that? Or I was really disappointed that those programs didn't get handed in by last Friday's deadline. Can we have a chat about that? Once that relationship is established and people feel that sense of tribiness much more, then we can have those conversations much more easily. Any questions before I send you off into your groups? No, I'm just going to stop this share because I think that's going to allow me to do the breakout rooms more easily. Yes, breakout rooms, same as before. Going to make it 8 minutes. Which bring us up to after 20 past. Alrighty, go for it. Are you? I might need to
yeah, maybe because
you dropped out, Anne-Marie.
Yeah, so, and came back in again.
So you were with Kristen,
Courtney.
Yeah? Courtney.
No, I was with Courtney.
Okay, so let's reassign. Anne-Marie assigned to, must be room 1. Here we go. Perfect. It's stressful managing that. Good process.
Is it going well?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think so. I wasn't exactly sure. I mean, I wanted this to directly follow that, so that's good. And I think the terror as the sort of garden bed, as I've said there. Actually, I should stop the recording, shouldn't I?